Martha Henderson sat in the PI op room, her hands folded calmly in her lap. At 68 years old, she had learned patience. The thin hospital gown felt cold against her skin, but her heart was warm. Today, she would give her kidney to save her son's life. Her son, David, was 42. A good man, a loving father. He lay in a room down the hall, his body failing, waiting for her gift. Martha had not hesitated when the doctors said she was a match. What mother would? But the woman sitting beside David's bed had hesitated. Nicole, her daughter-in-law, had pulled Martha aside 3 days ago in the hospital cafeteria. It's your obligation, Nicole had said, stirring her coffee with sharp, precise movements. You're his mother. The words had landed differently than Nicole intended. Martha had simply nodded, but something shifted in her understanding of this woman her son had married 15 years ago. Now, as the nurses prepared her for surgery, Martha thought about her grandson, Tyler, 9 years old, bright eyes, gentle heart. Just yesterday, he had visited her home. Tyler had always been observant. While other children ran and played without thought, he watched. He listened. He understood things that perhaps he shouldn't have needed to understand so young. He had found Martha in her garden, tending to her roses. She grew them in every color. Red for love, yellow for friendship, white for new beginnings. Tyler sat on the grass beside her, pulling at the blades absently. Grandma, he said quietly, can I ask you something? Martha had set down her pruning shears and given him her full attention. That's what you do with children. You stop. You listen, of course, sweetheart. Tyler's face was troubled. He looked like David had at that age, all serious eyes and furrowed brow. MOM said you have to give Dad your kidney because you're his MOM. She said it's your obligation. He stumbled over the last word, clearly repeating something he'd heard. But I heard her on the phone last night. Martha's chest tightened, but she remained still, listening. She was talking to Uncle Craig, Dad's brother. Tyler looked down at the grass. She said Dad isn't really. Dad's? The words hung in the air between them. Martha had known this moment might come, though not like this. Not from her grandson. Not about this. Martha had suspected for years, though David never knew. Perhaps deep down, he had wondered too. David had her eyes, her gentle nature, but nothing of his father, Robert, who had passed 10 years ago. Robert had been tall, broad-shouldered, with a commanding presence. David was lean, scholarly, quiet. When David was born, Martha had been recovering from a difficult time in her marriage. Robert traveled constantly for work. She had been lonely. She had made a mistake with a colleague, a man named James, during a conference weekend. It happened once. She had carried the guilt for 42 years. She never knew for certain that David wasn't Robert's son. Robert never questioned it. She had buried that weekend deep in her memory and devoted herself to being the best mother and wife she could be. But Nicole had somehow discovered the truth, and Nicole had said nothing to David. Instead, she had seen Martha's kidney donation as an obligation. While knowing it might not even be biologically necessary, Martha took Tyler's small hands in her weathered ones. Tyler, sweetheart, listen to me carefully. Your father is my son. I raised him. I loved him every single day of his life. That's what makes someone a parent. Not blood. Love. Time. Showing up. Tyler nodded slowly, but his eyes were still worried. But MOM said, your mother. Martha interrupted gently, is angry about something. Adults sometimes say things they shouldn't when they're angry. But here's what I need you to understand. I'm giving my kidney to your father because I love him. Not because I have to. Because I want to. Will you tell him about what MOM said? Martha was quiet for a long moment, considering. The truth could wait. Right now, David needed to live. He needed to recover. He needed to be there for his son. Not yet, she said finally. But someday, if it needs to be said, it will be. Truth has a way of finding the right time. The day of surgery now. Lying in the PI op room, Martha thought about Nicole. The woman had married David for security. Martha had always known that, though she'd hoped love might grow between them. Instead, Nicole had grown resentful. She resented David's gentle nature, his modest income as a librarian, his contentment with a simple life. Nicole wanted more. She always wanted more, and somehow, digging through old family records or perhaps confronting Martha's past in some way Martha didn't fully understand, Nicole had found evidence of that long ago weekend. Instead of compassion, she had found leverage. But leverage only works if you use it. And Martha suspected Nicole was waiting for the right moment, perhaps after the surgery. Perhaps when David was recovering and vulnerable. The operation took 6 hours. Martha woke in recovery with a dull ache in her side and a profound sense of peace. The nurse told her the surgery had gone perfectly. David's body was already accepting. The kidney. He would live. Martha closed her eyes and thanked God, the universe, whatever force had allowed her to give this gift. 3 days later, she walked slowly down the hall to David's room. Her side still hurt, but she was healing. Inside, David was sitting up, color returning to his face. Tyler sat on the edge of the bed, showing his father a drawing. Nicole stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the parking lot. "Mom," David said, his voice thick with emotion. He reached for her hand. "Thank you." "I don't have words big enough to thank you." Martha squeezed his hand. "You don't need words. You are my son. I love you." Nicole turned from the window. Her expression was difficult to read. Anger? Guilt? Resentment? Perhaps all three. "We should let Martha rest," Nicole said abruptly. "Tyler, let's go get lunch." "But I want to stay with Dad and Grandma," Tyler protested. "Now," Nicole said sharply. David frowned at his wife's tone but said nothing. Tyler reluctantly slid off the bed and followed his mother out. 1 week after the surgery, Martha received a phone call from Nicole. Her voice was cold. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" Martha had been expecting this. She drove to David and Nicole's house slowly, carefully, still healing. The autumn air was crisp, and the leaves were turning gold and red. "Beautiful even now." Nicole answered the door, but didn't invite her in warmly. They sat in the living room. Nicole didn't offer coffee or tea. "I know about James," Nicole said bluntly. "I found letters. Old letters you kept in a box. In your attic when I was helping Robert clear things out years ago, before he passed." "Love letters." Martha's heart sank, but she kept her composure. "Those letters were private. They suggest David might not be Robert's son. And you let everyone believe he was. You took that secret to your husband's grave." Robert never questioned David's paternity. He loved David as his son. "That's all that mattered. But it's a lie," Nicole hissed. "A lie you've lived for 40 years. Why are you bringing this up now, Nicole? What do you want?" Nicole leaned forward. "I want David to know the truth. I want him to know that his whole life has been built on your deception." Martha met her daughter-in-law's eyes steadily. "You want to hurt him. That's what this is about. You're unhappy, and you want him to be unhappy too. He deserves to know who he really is. He knows who he is. He's a good man, a loving father, a devoted son. What would telling him accomplish except pain?" Nicole stood abruptly. "I'm telling him. Tonight, when he comes home from his checkup." But Tyler had heard everything. He had been in the hallway, coming home from school through the back door. He had heard his mother's angry words, his grandmother's calm responses that evening. Before David came home, Tyler sat down with his mother at the kitchen table. "Mom, I need to talk to you." Nicole looked at her son, surprised by his serious tone. "Grandma gave Dad her kidney because she loves him. It doesn't matter whose blood is whose. She saved his life. If you tell him this secret now, while he's still recovering, it will hurt him. It will hurt Grandma. And it will hurt me, Tyler. This isn't your concern." "Yes, it is. Dad's my dad. Grandma's my grandma. And you're my MOM. But if you do this, MOM, if you hurt them this way, I'll know what kind of person you really are." Nicole stared at her son, 9 years old, and he was looking at her with such clear understanding, such moral certainty. "You don't understand adult complications," she said weakly. "I understand kindness," Tyler replied. Grandma showed that kindness. She gave him part of herself. "You want to take something away from him. That's not love, MOM." When David came home that evening, tired but healing, Nicole said nothing about James or the letters or the secret. Tyler had shown her something she hadn't expected to see, herself reflected through her son's eyes, and she didn't like what she saw. Over the following months, Nicole began to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly she began to understand that love isn't about obligation or blood or biological truth. It's about showing up. It's about sacrifice. It's about giving what you can when someone you love needs you. She watched Mother slowly heal, saw the way David visited his mother every weekend, bringing her flowers for her garden. She saw Tyler's face light up when Grandma told stories about David's childhood. She saw a family built not on perfect truth, but on enduring love. Martha was in her garden again, roses blooming in the spring warmth. David sat beside her, stronger now, healthy. Tyler was helping plant new bulbs for summer, "MOM," David said quietly. "Nicole told me something the other day." Martha's hands stilled on the soil. "She said she'd been angry at you. About the kidney. About feeling like you were obligated. But she said she was wrong. She said you gave me the greatest gift anyone could give, and she wanted to apologize for not seeing that right away." Martha looked at her son's face, searching for any sign that he knew the deeper truth. But there was only love there. Gratitude. "Peace. Your wife is a good woman," Martha said carefully. "We all struggle sometimes with what's right. What matters is what we choose in the end." David nodded, then smiled. "Tyler told me you two had a conversation in your garden. He said you told him that love is what makes a family, not blood." "I did say that. That's beautiful, MOM. And true." Tyler looked up from his planting, dirt on his hands, joy on his face. "Grandma, can we plant white roses this year? You said white is for new beginnings." Martha smiled, her heart full. "Yes, sweetheart. White roses for new beginnings." 1 year after the surgery, Nicole brought Martha a box. Inside were the old letters from James. "All of them. I should never have kept these," Nicole said. "They weren't mine to keep. They weren't mine to use." Martha took the box. "Thank you. I was going to destroy your family with these. I'm ashamed of that now. We're not destroyed, Nicole. We're here. We're together. That's what matters." Nicole's eyes filled with tears. "How can you forgive me? Because holding on to anger would poison me, not you. And because I believe people can change." "You're changing. I see it." That evening, Martha burned the letters in her fireplace, watching the past turn to ash. Some truths didn't need to be spoken. Some secrets could remain buried, not out of shame, but out of mercy. David would never need to know. Tyler would keep his grandmother's confidence. And Nicole had learned that revenge brings no peace, only emptiness. Martha lived 7 more years after giving David her kidney. Good years. She saw Tyler graduate from high school. She saw David publish his first book. She saw Nicole become softer, kinder, more present on her last day, surrounded by family. Martha held David's hand. "I love you, son." She whispered, "I love you too, MOM. You saved my life. You gave my life meaning." She replied, "That's a far greater gift." Tyler, now 16, stood at the foot of her bed, tears streaming down his face. He would carry his grandmother's wisdom forward. He would remember that love is a choice made every day, in small acts of kindness and great acts of sacrifice. Nicole stepped forward, taking Martha's other hand. "Thank you for teaching me what love really means." Martha smiled. "You taught yourself. You just needed time." As Martha closed her eyes for the last time, she felt no regret. She had loved fully. She had given freely. She had protected what needed protecting and released what needed releasing. The truth about truth, she had learned, is that it serves love, not the other way around. And in the end, love is the only truth that really matters. Years later, Tyler would plant a garden at his own home. Red roses for love, yellow for friendship, white for new beginnings. And when his own children asked about his grandmother, he would tell them about the woman who taught him that family is built not by blood, but by every small choice to show up, to care, to love without condition. That lesson, more than any genetic truth, was his grandmother's greatest gift, and it would live on, generation after generation, in every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every choice to love rather than wound. That is the story of Martha Henderson, a woman who gave her kidney, kept a secret, and understood that sometimes the truest thing we can do is protect the hearts of those we love.